I hit my brakes and I just swerved over her.
Why's your shirt wet?
The airbag just...
He's obviously impaired.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're taking a close look at this vehicle collision and suspected DUI involving a Florida County Commissioner. We say suspected DUI because, in a very rare turn of events, the Commissioner walks away from the encounter without even a citation for driving under the influence. Later, the official outright denies being intoxicated at the time of the crash, but we have the footage here so that you can decide for yourself. April 20th, 2022, 7:40 p.m. Deputy Pruitt of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office was off duty on an assignment in Florida's Grayhawk subdivision. As he was preparing to head home for the night, several passing locals informed him that a white truck had just crashed into a tree a short ways down the road from Grayhawk Boulevard. The deputy makes his way over to the crash site and is greeted by a woman frantically trying to explain what happened.
He swerved and ended up hitting this, and his airbag went off, and so now he's kind of a little out of it, and that's my car, and I just kind of slammed on the brakes. I didn't see anything that happened. I have absolutely no idea.
Okay. Let me talk to him real quick. What's his name?
George Cruz.
George Cruz? Okay.
Did somebody call you?
Yeah. The whole neighborhood. I'm working the special detail in here, and everybody keeps driving up to me.
Oh,
so,
really?
yeah. So, where's he at?
Hey, babe, how you feeling?
Let me come around to that other side and talk to him.
This is 46-year-old George Cruz, a commissioner for Manatee County, Florida, District 7. This is no small role, as county commissioners essentially act as the legislative board of a county. The Board of County Commissioners is responsible for approving annual budgets, policymaking, long-term planning, and the overall operations of a county. This is indeed an individual with a considerable amount of leverage, but as we've explained time and time again, pull doesn't equate to immunity from the law. When the deputy approaches, he notices several remarkable aspects about Mr. George's appearance, such as his clammy skin, thick tongue, glassy watery eyes, and droopy eyelids, on top of slurred speech and a demeanor that the officer described as all-around confused. The deputy can tell something is amiss.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Can you tell me what happened?
I was coming through the gate and somebody cut me off and blew right past me, and I tried to hit my brakes and curve around them and just cut a curb.
Okay. So you're saying that somebody was going around you?
Somebody cut, our whole road's being ripped up. So
right.
They try to curve around me, so I hit my brakes and I just swerved over her.
Okay.
When Mr. George says he swerved off the road, the illustrator he makes with his hand is a straight path, a possible nonverbal indicator that he knows the truck was actually going straight when it crashed, not swerving. If it were swerving, he likely would have subconsciously made a windy or jerking motion with his hand instead. Not to mention that the story itself doesn't track logically. He claims that someone cut him off and blew past him, then in the next breath claims he tried to hit his brakes and curve around them. If we assume that blew past is colloquial for sped past and consider that the alleged vehicle was moving fast enough to cut ahead of him and speed past, that makes it impossible for the vehicle to have cut him off, as cutting him off would have required the alleged vehicle to have been moving slower than him. In the hypothetical case that it did cut him off and he had to brake suddenly, this wouldn't have caused his truck to swerve, especially not all the way to the other side of the road, unless he was traveling at a very high rate of speed.
Alright, why's your shirt wet? What's going on with your shirt?
Is it sweat?
It's a sweat.
From the airbag?
The airbag just...
Well, the airbag doesn't have water in it, so...
It doesn't have water. Why is there water?
Because I'm stressed.
Stress? Okay. Alright, we got EMS coming to check you out, okay? Alright, so just stay in the car for me. Do you have your license on you?
Do you need EMS?
I don't need EMS.
Well, we'll have them at least come check you out. The airbag deployment and stuff like that, you want to have them at least looked at.
I live a half mile from this house.
Okay. All right, just hang out for me, okay? I'll be back with you in a second.
The interaction can be appropriately described as strange, or what some might call cringy, for several reasons. First, Mr. George's wife clearly tries to take control of the conversation and attempts to coach her husband through the question of why his shirt is wet. She then essentially objects to him receiving medical attention, though it is highly recommended that any person who isn't of sound mind have an interested party with them while interacting with law enforcement in order to help them make the best decisions for themselves. It's very unusual for a partner to not want to ensure that their loved one is unharmed after such a devastating accident. Immediately following such an incident also seems like a questionable time to be concerned about the state of her car, and even if she were just going to straighten up, why announce it to the officer? While it's possible she was simply being extra cautious, this unprovoked notification comes off as a cover for something.
Hey, vehicle versus tree, single vehicle, no other property damage. The driver is impaired of something. However, he was not in the vehicle when I got on scene. He was in his wife's vehicle.
Do we have any wheel witness or holding out on scene?
No, 54. Nobody stayed. So we have no independent witness. I just wanted to run it by you guys and be sure that we weren't going to do anything with it. All right, 10-4. I'll get a patrol unit to come work the crash. All right, 10-4.
The deputy has just learned that he will not be able to reprimand Mr. George for driving under the influence, since he technically can't be definitively placed inside the vehicle at the time of the crash. Florida Statute Section 316.193 clearly states that a person is guilty of the offense of driving under the influence and is subject to punishment if the person is driving or in actual physical control of the vehicle under the influence of alcoholic beverages or any chemical substance. This law makes just being in the driver's seat of a vehicle while intoxicated enough to be arrested. But the officer never saw Mr. George inside the wrecked vehicle and had no witness statements placing him there. Only statements saying that there was a crash down the road, which, both unfortunately and miraculously, leaves Deputy Pruitt with no basis for an arrest.
Drives me crazy. There it is. Winner, chicken dinner.
Go ahead.
74, 10 P valid, 1027. Baker 1321.
Baker 1321.
Just for 43, EMS will not be 51 with just airbag deployment and no confirmed entries.
All right, so
952.
Dispatch has just relayed that paramedics won't be responding to the scene, either effectively crushing the deputy's last chance at investigating further and possibly finding out conclusively if the suspect is intoxicated. He now has no reason to hold the couple any longer, and since extending the stop beyond what is required to carry out his duties is illegal, he must allow them to leave.
does he have his license on him?
Yes.
Can I get that
can
from?
get his license. Yes. Give your license, please. I'm so sorry. There you go.
Are you still at the Daisy Place address?
Yes. Yes. In fact, our daughter just drove by with her soccer teammate, and she got all freaked out.
Go ahead and call a tow truck. Start getting that on the way.
Okay. Can I bring him home so he can settle down, and then I'll handle this tow truck situation? We're right here on Daisy. This is Daisy.
What do you mean? Like you're gonna drop him off at home and then.
And he can go home with my daughter. Just drove by
Okay.
with her soccer teammate.
Yep, that's fine.
Can I drop him off with her?
Yeah, that's
and then
fine.
I can handle this?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. I'll be right back. You want my license?
No, you're fine.
The officer seems visibly frustrated at the fact that he's forced to let the suspect go home without taking accountability for allegedly driving while impaired. Justifiably so, as drunk driving is a truly terrifying reality that costs an average of nearly 11,000 lives every year in the US, which translates to over 30 victims every single day. And this statistic doesn't even include drug-related incidents. Even still, innumerable intoxicated persons make the decision on any given day to risk it all to drive home.
Oh no, you did that?
Did what?
That.
Crash the truck?
Whatever.
Are you? The dude freaking crashed into a tree.
Dude, did you miss the road?
No, he's drunk.
Just
Just can't do a DUI because nobody can put him behind the wheel. When I got here, he was in his wife's car.
Oh my god.
He's a very. Are you here to work the crash?
No, I'm going to work. I'm going to be late to that.
Oh, that's right. You're on the island.
Hey.
I forgot about that.
Don't let me piss this guy off.
Yeah.
Hey, congratulations, man.
Hey, man, you too. I'm glad you're out there.
All right.
Sure, that's relaxing.
The deputy simply waits inside his patrol car until his relief arrives a few minutes later.
What's up, man? If it would have happened about 15 minutes sooner, I'd have worked it for you. I'm trying to go home. I'm here till 8. I'm trying to look and see how this went down. She's lying. That's his driver's license and his registration. I don't have the insurance. This is probably her coming back up, the wife.
Okay.
She went and dropped him off at home. He's intoxicated. But when I got here, he was out of the car, in her car. And then there was nobody that stopped to say that they saw him in the car. He's admitting to being in the car and driving. She's admitting to him being in the car and driving, but it is what it is. Single vehicle accident, no property damage or anything like that.
Though the suspect did admit to driving, the rule of corpus delicti, a common law in the United States, says that a confession from the suspect alone is not sufficient enough evidence that the person has committed a crime. There must be evidence that supports the confession, such as witness statements. His wife technically would count as a witness, seeing as she was allegedly right behind him when it happened, and though it's not completely clear why her word isn't enough to warrant a field test, it might be because technically, at this point in time, she seems to be playing the role of his representation. The circumstances of the crash might have just lined up very conveniently for the commissioner, but it's hard not to consider the possibility that dropping the DUI charge could have been a political choice.
He is a county commissioner, FYI. So that's why she's going to be very political with you. Very polite, just take it for a grain of salt. He was obviously drinking. He's got a LaCroix in the front seat. He couldn't explain to me how his shirt got wet. Well, it's because he had a LaCroix in his hand when he freaking crashed into a tree, probably. So that just tells you more so that he's intoxicated. She's working on getting a tow truck here. If you just scratch out a freaking single vehicle crash deal, she can wait for the tow truck. You wouldn't have to wait for it being off the roadway. I was just trying to look at as I was trying to see where the tires went. But it looks like he just missed this tree. It looks like he came up here somewhere. I can't tell where he came up on the curb at. Oh, it must have been right there. There it is.
A member of the community made an interesting comment about the incident in the neighborhood group chat. While the two users at the top gave their personal accounts of what they saw post-crash, an investigative user at the bottom points out he swerved in the grass where there were no other cars to avoid, not to mention the direction he was going was opposite of where he should have been, and the only way to drive on the grass is to jump the curb. Yet another commenter says, if you look at the tire tracks in the grass, they show clear evidence that this F-150 was driving for an extended time on the lawn, possibly all the way from the north entrance gate. In other words, driving east of the trees, not on the road at all. The tire tracks then lead straight to the tree. A couple walking their dog told me the driver couldn't stand straight, seemed seriously intoxicated.
So, And then you got the two down there that's the tires chirping, and then he made it up onto the curb and smacked into the tree. Her story is she was driving behind him, and his story after the fact is that somebody cut him off. They pulled around him. She said somebody just cut him off. He said that somebody came around him and cut him off, you know, to pass him, and he lost control of the car because the way the road is. Which, if you're doing the proper speed, he wouldn't have that much crush damage on his hood. So that's just my traffic investigation crap. But it's just easy, simple single vehicle crash. You need anything from me? All right.
Representative. I love that everything is technological nowadays. Yes, live agent, please. Thank you.
Okay. This deputy's going to do a traffic crash, single vehicle. You understand your husband could go to jail for intoxicated driving, so you need to just talk to him about that. He's obviously impaired. It's obvious. This kind of crush depth for this kind of crash, he was not doing the speed limit that this road requires. If he's saying that somebody went around him...
I will say, though, that this asphalt has been a complete show.
Oh, I agree.
And if you get one wrong swerve, it can cause you to go... And people are
to a degree. If you're driving the speed limit that he should have been driving, that would not have been the case. You can hold control of your vehicle. It's not that slippery. I've driven up and down this road for the last 4 hours. Okay, at the posted speed limit, and I've had no issues controlling my vehicle.
Hello?
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hang on one second.
So just be mindful of that. I know who your husband is, okay? And this could have turned out very badly. And he just needs to be more cognizant of that.
Yes.
All right, whether or not somebody cut him off or not, we'll take that with a grain of salt. But the speed that he was driving was not the speed limit. It was well over the speed limit because there's over 2.5 feet worth of crush damage on this tree. This truck only weighs about 6,000 pounds. I'm a trained traffic investigator. That kind of crush depth would not have happened if he was only traveling at 25 miles an hour. Okay? So, there's no reason why he should have been driving, especially if you were right behind him. I mean, you guys are very aware of how this law works. You're very smart people.
Of course.
There's no reason he should have been driving. You guys have to be mindful of that because then our hands are tied.
I understand.
And then we have to make phone calls and other people have to be involved. And it's just it puts everybody into a really crappy scenario. And I don't want to be there. The benefit here is that nobody out of the 7 people that stopped and told me about this, nobody stayed to say he was in that car. Had that been the case, my traffic units would have been here, worked the crash, worked the DUI, and he would have gone to jail. Because he was obviously impaired. Nobody that's driving a car that has all their faculties about them wouldn't know where the water came from on his truck, on his shirt. It's because he had a drink in his hand, and when he crashed, the drink went all over him. And an airbag, this crash in and of itself, and the airbag wouldn't put somebody into that big of a loop that he didn't know what happened, and it's because he's intoxicated. So please, please, please have a very candid conversation with him about it. That this could have been very, very bad for him.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't appreciate being not given factual points about what happened.
I've never been in this situation.
I know,
okay?
I know, and that's why I'm telling you. The way to get out of this situation is nobody drives. We have Uber, we have Lyft, we have places that'll pick up your car and tow it for free. You're with him. I imagine you were with him.
I was a couple minutes behind him.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Just please. I don't ever want to have to do this to a public official at all. Okay. All right. He's going to do the crash. It should be fairly quick. He probably won't stay. You'll just have to stay and wait for the tow truck to get here and pull the car off.
Yep.
There's no property damage or anything, so Greyhawk doesn't even have to be involved. So it should just be you and your insurance at this point. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Be careful.
In the name of transparency, Valdosta officials released the bodycam footage to the public. Commissioner George Cruz had an interesting response to the reveal. He denied everything.
This was a personal, careless driving that someone's trying to turn a civil case into something more. It's not. I'm not going to get into people's political leanings and what they're attempting to do. That's on them, not on me.
He later commented on the incident saying, 2 weeks ago, I was cited for a civil infraction. No question there. A week later, someone decided to turn this political. It's just a witch hunt. There was no alcohol. There were no drugs involved. It's just to come after me or to make my whole life miserable. The state attorney's office decided to formally charge George Cruz with driving under the influence 2 months later, after a new piece of evidence was discovered, a 911 call placed just moments after the collision by the Ford's automatic crash alert system. In addition to calling 911, the system also started taping any audio within the car immediately after the crash. In the tape, Mr. George's wife is heard coaxing him out of the truck, refusing to give the dispatcher their location, and saying that her husband was fine and that they didn't want police to come. The male heard in the audio is slurring and sounds as if he's fading in and out of consciousness. The case was dealt a devastating blow when the audio from the Bodycam footage was deemed inadmissible in court because the officer didn't recite Mr. George's Miranda rights after realizing he might have been drunk and committing a criminal act. In June of 2023, prosecutors dropped the case against Mr. George altogether.